Hi everyone. So today for my reflection, I did use my John Maxwell, but I wanted to look at two scriptures in the Bible where Jesus does healing, and they're from Matthew. The first one is where he cures the centurion servant, and that's Matthew 8. And the second one is Matthew 15, 22 to 28. The first one is Matthew 8, 6 to 13. So the first one, it's the cure of the centurion servant. So this is somebody outside of Jesus's community, a soldier who's going and asking him to cure his servant who is lying at home ill, and telling Jesus that he knows he's under command, and when he gives a command, it will be done. And that's the phrase we use when we go for Holy Communion. It's taken directly from the scriptures. So we see that Jesus, he heals. He says to him, go home, go back then, and let this be done for you as your faith commands. And the servant was cured at that moment. So it's interesting because Jesus says, in truth I tell you, in no one in Israel have I found faith as great as this. And I tell you that many will come from east and west to sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob at the feast in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom will be thrown out into the darkness outside, where there will be weeping and grinding of teeth. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go back then, let this be done for you as your faith commands. And the servant was cured at that moment. Then we have the curing of Peter's mother-in-law, who is feverish. He touches her hand and the fever leaves her. And she got up and she began to serve. So serving is part of ministry. That's what we do as women. And that's where a lot of men do it too, but mainly it's women who serve. And the men are under command. So they take commands, they give commands, and it's done. So this is a very male-dominated society. And then you see in here in Matthew 15, it says, Jesus left that place and withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And suddenly out came a Canaanite woman from that district and started shouting, Lord, Son of David, take pity on me. My daughter is tormented by a devil. But he said not a word in answer to her. And his disciples went and pleaded with him, saying, give her what she wants, because she keeps shouting after us. He said in reply, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But the woman had come up and was bowing low before him. Lord, she said, help me. He replied, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the little dogs. So this is little dogs. This is a newer translation of the Bible. But in the old Bibles, they don't say little dogs. They just say, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. She retorted, yes, Lord, but even little dogs eat the scraps that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered her, woman, you have great faith. Let your desire be granted. And from that moment, her daughter was well again. So in both of these situations, you see non-Jews going to Jesus, going out of their territory. And in the one, Jesus heals. He just heals. The centurion asks him, and he says, I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel, and he heals. And yet we have this woman now coming to him. She's also come out of her territory into the Jewish territory, and she's asking him to heal. And look at how he's answering her. So it's interesting to see, because when we look at how women get treated, even today in the church, there's a difference. There is less understanding, less compassion when a woman makes a mistake, even on the altar, even in serving. You'll find that the priests and the people in power can be very harsh with us. And you'll find that there's this retorting that goes on. You answer back, then they answer you, then you answer back, and then you meet somewhere in the middle. So it's very different compared to if you're in your own territory, your own country. I never experienced that until I came to Canada. And the woman used to tell me, even in banking, I say, you people, when you ask for something, they don't just do it for you. They're like, no, you have to ask, and then they retort, and then you have to ask again, and then you have to persist, and then you meet somewhere in the middle. I'm like, it's too much work. They're like, well, we're just telling you that's how it is here. Because I came from my own territory, my own country, and if I asked for something, it was just done. I didn't have to go back and forth and negotiate and meet somewhere in the middle. And this is what Jesus is doing here with this woman. And after all this back and forth, then he says to a woman, you have great faith, let your desire be granted. And then her daughter is well again. So it's interesting to see how culture plays a role here. And it's interesting to see how Jesus is answering her. So, and even with the disciples, in the Greek, it means let her go with her request granted. So Jesus comes for the salvation of the Jews, primarily the children, so-called children of God, and we are outside. But we are all children of God because we all are created by God. But this was the understanding at the time. So before caring for the Gentiles, who were in the eyes of the Jews only dogs, so it's like, oh, like those foreigners, it's like that, or oh, those refugees, or those activists, it's like that. So it's that kind of, oh, these people again, just give them what they want and let them go, please. It's that kind of an idea that is reflected here in the gospel. And so we see this salvation that it's for us, it's for the Jewish people that I came. It's not for you, like, why do you come to me? And then this retorting that goes on. Because they were also treated very harshly by the people who were non-Jewish. So there's this kind of dialogue that's going on between them. And it's interesting to see how this happens still today in our societies. And if you're coming here from a different culture, it can be very, very hurtful. And it can be very disconcerting to go through it. So, I mean, yes, it's insulting, basically. It's insulting. Whether you are coming here and you are like, okay, I'm equal to them, I have the same degrees, the same certifications, I can do even better than them, I can do even more than them, but that insult comes. So there's very few that will accept you and that will take you in and that will embrace you. And so, you know, when you get that, it's very much appreciated. And I had that when I was with the Liberals. I had it with the Conservatives. I had it with Michael Levitt. But I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, these people are actually welcoming me. They're actually asking for me. And even when they told me, oh, you must come and meet Marco Mendocino, I was like, okay, you know what? I don't expect people to treat me like that. So, because I'm too used to the insult and being hurt and it's like, oh yeah, here we go again. Now you're asking for an increase in salary. And I always retort and I say, I also have to live. I also have to earn a living. I also have wages to pay. I also have rent to pay, just like you. Just because you're French Canadian or just because you were born here and I wasn't, doesn't mean that I'm less worthy than you. And that's what I do. Because you have to do it. And if you don't do it and you don't persist, you're not going to get anywhere. Whether it's in your faith life or whether it's in the daily life, you have to persist and you have to be persistent, because otherwise what happened with the World Cup will happen. What happened with the farm workers here will happen. The people will not be treated right. All those workers that went from India to help build that stadium and the abuse, that's what happens. So those are things that are present in the gospel that we can learn from. And the other scripture is to choose achievement over affirmation from 2 Timothy 4:3. It says, instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather round them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. So it explains it well, because sometimes people, if we tell them what they want to hear, they might promote us, give us the best jobs, the best treatment, but at the end of the day, it might not be best for us in the long run. And we can make an impact if we know the value of things, and if we accomplish. If we accomplish, then, it doesn't matter what happens, but we also lift others up. And there's a good example here given by John Maxwell, that a friend once explained to him this concept well. He told him that people catch crabs and they toss the crustaceans into a basket. If you only have one crab in the basket, you need a lid to keep it from crawling out. But if you've got 2 or more, you don't. When there are several crabs, they will drag one another down so that none of them can get away. A lot of unsuccessful people act the same way. They'll do things to keep others from getting ahead. But the good news is that if you observe someone trying to do that, you don't have to buy into their belief system. You can get out and stay out of the basket by refusing to be a crab. And many people look at the idea of the eagle, that the eagle flies above the storm. Many people use that instead of the crow. And it depends on our circumstances. Sometimes the crow teaches us valuable lessons, because the crows, when there's no water, if they find my grandfather used to tell me this, if they find a glass or a jar and there's water in there at the bottom, the crow will go and it will fly and collect stones, and it will put the stones into that glass until it can reach that water and drink from it. So nature has a lot to teach us. Sometimes you can't fly above the storm because everybody is dragging you down, saying it's not only you in the circumstances. You might be way ahead of them in terms of your education, your networking, what you're doing, what you're teaching, what you're helping people to do. You might be way ahead of them. But if you're not getting that income coming in, like me, why do you think I took that minimum wage job in the call center? I didn't do it because I couldn't do better, or because I wasn't a project coordinator, or because I hadn't been successful as an executive assistant. I took it because I needed to get an income coming in. And so that's why I use that ideology of the crow and the eagle and how we can learn from them. And there's another scripture here, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. So when we are leaders, we all have gifts. All of us have gifts. It doesn't matter who we are. And they're distributed to us by Christ. And in Romans 12, we call these the motivational gifts, which means they are central to our lives. And some of the ones that John Maxwell lists is the gift of prophecy, to challenge others by declaring God's truth and calling for action. So that's what we do when we're activists, or when we are signing petitions, or we're writing to our governments asking for help in our own countries as well as other places. There's the gifts of service or ministry, to serve others and meet their needs as well as our own. There's the gift of teaching, to explain truth so that others can understand it and apply it. Exhortation, to encourage, strengthen, and inspire others to be their best. Giving, to share generously what God has given us. Leadership, to govern and oversee others so that the group moves forward. And mercy, to empathize with, cheer, and show compassion to those who hurt. So all of us have gifts, and all of us are using them in different ways. We might not be able to use them in what we want to use them, but we can find opportunities to use them in different ways. And that's why I'm doing these videos. I'm doing them because I want people to see that I'm able to explain the scriptures, that I'm able to teach others, that I'm able to help others. And even my dress or how I do my makeup or what I can do, I want people to see I have gifts, I have talents, and I want to use them to earn an income and to earn a living and to expand my business, my John Maxwell business in leadership. So I'll leave you with those, and I think for me, that's one of the things that when I did my theology and I did the studies, I focused on how women were treated in the Bible and the gifts of women and how Jesus treated them, how Jesus talked to them, how Jesus interacted with them. And the Bible is full of stories like this. And with that curing of the woman's daughter, he treated her like an equal. He retorted to her like an equal, but as an outsider. And that's the difference between being an insider and an outsider. Now I'm a citizen of this country, but there are still situations where I get treated like an outsider. It still happens, not only to me, but to others. It's like, oh yeah, well, you were not born here. Well, your family was not born here either. Everybody that came to this country comes from a line of immigrants. And everybody that has been accepted into the Christian church comes from a line of outsiders. We are all outsiders. It's only through God's grace and through Christ embracing us that we are joined onto him. But it's interesting to see how women got treated in the Bible. And there's different situations. I mean, even the woman that they called a sinner that went and cried over Jesus's feet and washed his feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. She was most probably Jewish. If she wasn't, I don't think she would have even been allowed in there. When I go to these events with these big shots, with the politicians and with Bono and all of them, I'm invited. I invite and I'm invited. They don't come when I invite them, but I still invite them. So, and sometimes I don't go when they invite me. So it works both ways. I'm not a president, I'm not a prime minister, but I go to use my voice and to speak at their meetings. And I do it as a woman and as a Christian. And that's how our faith is lived out in daily life. Not all of us are going to become priests or nuns or, have people provide for us lands and property and houses. But we want the opportunity to own them for ourselves and to earn a living. I'm going to turn the camera off now.